Attorneys for the family of a 1-year-old shot and killed by a Senatobia police officer say they now have scientific evidence that contradicts the police department's original statement. At a press conference Wednesday, civil rights attorney Ben Crump revealed the findings of an independent autopsy conducted on Kohen Wiley. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation initially claimed an officer opened fire because a car was driving toward law enforcement. But a private pathologist determined the fatal bullet actually entered the right side of Cohen's chest and exited the left. Here's what Ben Crump told us after releasing the findings.
They are trying to convince us that the reason they shot this infant baby that they knew was in the car was because it was a matter of life and death. And we're demanding that video because the evidence we're seeing is not adding up to that. Based on this initial review, it shows us that the bullet that killed baby Kohen came through the side right door window. And if the car is on his side, he is not in a life or death situation to warrant deadly force to kill this beautiful little baby.
Attorneys presented photos of the car showing a shattered passenger side window, ruling that the shot came from the side, not the windshield, as the car drove away. Pastor Norman, I'll have you open it up here. We're still getting not very much information from MBI, so Ben Crump and his team are really the only part of this whole entire situation that we're getting information from at this point. No video, but what do you think about that part of this case and how that's going to play into their side?
Well, that part of this case proves a very big part of this case. So if you're talking about shooting from the side, that means you were not standing in the pathway of the car. So the imminent threat to your life and the danger is totally wiped out at that point. But there were so many failures that have taken place before this whole thing even starts. First of all, we're talking about diapers. Secondly, we're talking about two young women who, Pepper, and to be clear, are not your size. I mean, when we looked at these people, we're talking about young ladies who are in a car and they're not trying to kill anybody. And so the law enforcement officer's failure to properly assess this and to draw a weapon was way out of context here. And so the failures that had taken place up to this point only point to now we're shooting in the side of a vehicle, and then the report that we give afterwards to try to cover that, which is what it sounds like to me. They're trying to cover that, really makes it all together worse. In order to have a relationship with law enforcement, we have to sometimes admit where we failed and sometimes where we have acted aggressively in an excited, raised kind of tension, and just say, we made a terrible mistake here, and how do we get to the end of this? Not by just wiping it away, but by saying give them the training and help them to better assess situations like this so that they don't find themselves in this case.
Otis, what are you making of the fact that the family's attorney is vocal? You know, they're giving pretty much a lot of transparency on how they plan to fight this case, whereas the opposite is happening on the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, where it's like a no, nothing.
Deathly silence.
Yeah, there you go.
Going on here. And it fuels the notion that there's a cover-up going on here.
You think so?
Let's be honest.
A cover-up.
Well, I mean, if you don't talk about it and you let the other narrative be the narrative, and you don't counteract that with something, yes, it breeds the suspicion and the notion that there is a cover-up. But let me say this, too. It was heartbreaking to see children acting as pallbearers for this 1-year-old at the funeral. Yeah. That was heartbreaking for me. And now to have the silence coming from the state, very little, if anything, coming from the local officials. We saw that video from the mayor, and he said nothing. We get nothing from the governor, who likes to talk about everything, including our next segment that we're going to talk about, and how Benny Thompson is a reign of terror, and you don't talk about anything having to do with the death of a baby? I mean, come on here. I grew up in Mississippi, and this is a shameful day for them because they are not talking about this, and it does breed a suspicion of cover-up here.
Scott,
okay, you're going to find this hard to believe.
Go ahead, go for it.
I agree with Keith and kind of agree with Otis that everything needs to come out. If there's videos, they need to come out. Full disclosure needs to be made, but before judgment is made, full disclosure needs to come out. it's a tragic situation. We will never bring this young child back. But, and this is where I agree with Keith, if we can learn from this, as you said, in response and in training and how police should act, and to maybe one day prevent another tragedy like this happening, that's the best that we can hope for.
Yeah, I wanted to point out already what we do know as far as the report and the early correspondence we did get from the Senatobia Police Department, which the wording has now been brought to light of calling that one-year-old a juvenile and fleeing with the two adults, and just the nature of the officer, the car coming toward an officer, almost giving the impression that it was justifying the officer shooting into the car. And we're seeing from the independent autopsy that that may not be exactly what happened. So to the point of moving forward and just figuring out how to better the situation, should the Senatobia Police Department, what are they waiting on? Are they waiting on trial or a case, or why not come out right now?
I think oftentimes,
and I don't know, maybe nobody can answer that.
I think oftentimes they wait for public sentiment to die down.
To die down.
And they want people to fall asleep at the wheel on this. But what's going to happen here is you're going to find that Attorney Crump and his team, Van Turner, who's a local attorney, they're going to continue to push. Other organizations, the NAACP and others, are going to continue to raise their voice. And I think the public sentiment is going to remain high around this because we're talking about a baby.
Right.
We're not talking about a juvenile. We're not talking about a young person who had any autonomy or authority to do anything in this case. No culpability at all. We're talking about an officer and the blown out side of a window on a car. This means that this is possibly even close range, large gauge. I don't know what type of weapon was used, but we got to learn from this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But those are the kinds of things, and I'm not disagreeing with your statements. I'm saying, but you're making conjecture, and we don't have all the facts yet. And I'm not trying to justify. I'm just trying to say before.
I'm countering what was said. That's all.
But we need to get, and I don't know why Senatobia is not releasing this, but all of the information needs to come out before decisions and are being made.
Otherwise, and that's what's not happening.
I understand that, and I don't understand why it's not either.
Coming out, and it's a shame. The pressure needs to stay on here, and I applaud the television station, especially 24, for staying on the story because people need to say it. If there's a belief that maybe the guy shot because another officer might have been in danger, come out and say that.
Right.
But you're not saying anything, and again, it breeds the suspicion of a cover-up, and you got to come out and dispel that.
There's one more voice in
Really
this.
quick.
Walmart.
Yes.
And
Walmart needs to talk.
I do want to shout out our reporters, Lauren Turman and Ezekiel Telemaco. They've been doing a fabulous job covering this story, so be sure to follow them for all the updates on this. When we come back, we're going to stay in Mississippi, but we're going to talk about the Supreme Court's ruling on a major election law. We'll be right back.